have a little lecture about this. Hopefully, we can finish this one for 3 hours. Okay, so marami kasi tayong mga walang pasok in the past semester. So I think there are three or four Saturdays yata yun. So sayang. Anyway, um, I think we can do it today. Okay, so just listen, and if you have some questions, no, there is a chat column here. Okay, so medyo medyo mahaba maikli lang to pero ano, yung mga solution niya kasi puro ano medyo mahaba, puro drawing ng mga block diagram. Okay, so I want to present now. Window, share. Wait lang, may pumapasok pa. Okay, so I think we can start now. Okay, so for lesson number 5, we have our last lesson. We have the block diagram and signal flow graphs. Now, block diagram and signal flow graphs are synonymous. Um, we can only simplify the block diagram using the signal flow graphs, but you have the same procedure. Okay, so for this lesson, we have to familiarize with the reduction of complex block diagrams and convert systems into block diagrams equivalent. No? We will study the block diagram algebra later, and transfer functions, no? Transfer functions using the block diagrams, and convert block diagrams to signal flow graphs. Okay, and we can apply Mason's gain formula from the signal flow graphs. Okay. Okay, all systems can be described by a set of differential equations or can be represented by the schematic diagram containing all components and their connections. Block diagrams are pictorial representation of the control systems. No? So we can represent our systems using the block diagram. So if you still remember, yung first lesson natin, we deal with the block diagrams of each of the components of the entire system. Okay? Now, let us consider that the element of the control system having a transfer function g of s. Now, g of s is the element of the transfer functions. So, if you still remember again, transfer functions is equal to the output over the input. So whatever the equation that will give the output over the input, that is our transfer function, g of s. Okay. Now here, the relationship between the output and the input, so you have the output in the time function and the input in the time function. So you have the equation relating to the input and the output. Now, we try to convert this. Instead of time function, we have the frequency, no? Frequency domain or your Laplace transform. Okay. Now, what are the procedures? So, write down the differential equation representing the system. We are doing that already. Then, find the Laplace transform, assuming the initial conditions are 0. Then, represent each equation in the form of a block. Then, interconnect this block to get the final block diagram. Okay, so that's how you draw the block diagram of the system. So instead of drawing yung schematic, let's say yung nagpe-press ng paper, so if you remember, no? Okay? So marami siyang mga pulley, may mga bulb. So instead of drawing that, so we might as well represent that in a simpler form, which is in the block diagram. So all you have to do is determine the input and determine the output. Then you put your process inside the block diagram. Okay, so as an example, you have the open loop transfer function. So you have X is the output, F is the input. So ito yung nasa loob ng block diagram natin that is represented as G of S. That is true for open loop transfer function. Also, for closed loop transfer function, you have the H. The H is the feedback, no? This one is the feedback element. And you have R sub S, you have the sign, no? Yung sign ng R sub S, saka yung sign ng feedback, which is negative. It can also become positive, no? Depending on the type of feedback that is being used. So if you're using the negative, you have the negative feedback. If you're using the positive, so you have the positive feedback. Okay, so the purpose of this negative and positive, no? R sub S is always positive. So the purpose of this, yung changes in sign of your feedback, whether it is positive or negative, is that when the output of this feedback is negative, you will subtract. No, you will subtract the value from your R sub S. So kung positive, so you have to add. Okay? Wait lang, may pumapasok. Okay, now this one is the canonical form or the standard form. Canonical meaning the standard, no? So we have R, okay, the input. We have the E, the error signal. We have the C, the output. We have the G, that is the transfer function of C and R, no? This one is the input, this one is the output. So output over the input, that is equal to G. And the input of H is the output of the G. Okay? The input of H is the output of the G. And the output of the H, that is the V signal. Okay? So therefore, the transfer function for the feedback, which is H, that is output over the input. So that is C over V. No? C over V. Okay? Okay, ano lang, admit. Ayan. Now, these are the
Good morning po.
morning. So these are the definition of terms. Wala, may pumapasok. Okay, so you have the R. Now, the S meaning they are already in your frequency domain, or that is in the Laplace transform, no? So R is the reference input, E, the error signal, G, forward path transfer function, C, that is the output signal, H, feedback transfer function, okay, that is the content of the H, B, that is the feedback signal. So, ito yung B natin. So, ito, na-discuss ko na kanina yan. So, you have the error, you have the feedback signal, the output, and yung dalawang transfer function natin, no? Okay. M is the closed loop transfer function. Now, let's try to derive some of the equations involving your canonical form. Okay? So, I'll stop sharing this one. Okay, so ilagay tayo ng bagong bond paper. So, stop share this. Okay. So, I'll draw first the standard form. para hindi tayo pabalik-balik. Okay? So we have the summing point, the P, okay? Yan. So we have here the feedback, H. Okay. So we have yan. So we have R, E, E, and we have B, negative, positive. Okay? Okay, so we have C. So first we have G, that is equal to C over E. Okay? So that is output over the input. The input of G is E. The output is C. Ayan, output over the input. Okay, so you have H, that is B over C. Okay, and the error is represented as E, that is R minus B. Yeah? Okay, now this one can be represented as C is equal to GE. And this one can be represented as B is equal to HC. Okay, so parang ano, no, nilagay lang dun sa taas, GE at saka HC. Okay? Okay, now B, okay, B that is equal to HC, okay? And but what is the value of C? So B is equal to H multiplied by GE. Okay? So ganyan. Okay, so therefore, you have B all over E that is equal to GH. Okay? So therefore, this one is open loop transfer function. That is from B to E. No? B, or that is B, papuntang E. Output is B. Input is E. So you have GH. So ito yun. Okay? Yan. Okay? That is open loop because it doesn't matter whatever the value of C because C is already cancelled here. Okay? Cancelled na yung C. Okay, next. So we have C, multiplied by GE. Okay? And what is E? That is G multiplied by E, that is R minus B. Ayan o. E is R minus B. Ito. Okay? So you have R, G, okay, minus JB. Okay? But what is B? B is HC. So you have C equal to RG minus G multiplied by B, which is HC. Okay? So yung C, lipat natin sa kabila. So that is C, okay, plus G, HC, that is equal to RG. So common yung C, nilabas yung C. That is 1 plus GH. Okay, and that is equal to R multiplied by G. Okay, Now, R is the input, C is the output. So, transfer function, we have C over R is equal to G all over 1 plus H. So, this one is equal to M. Okay, kung makikita nyo sa slide. M meaning that is the closed loop transfer function. Okay, that's the closed loop transfer function. Okay, now if your B is positive, this one will become, or if your B is negative, so this one will become positive. Okay, so kung positive naman ang B, ilagay ko doon positive, negative, positive. Ito naman ay magne-negative. Okay? So that's how you determine the closed loop transfer function and the open loop transfer function. Okay? Yung G at saka H, may laman yan na equation, no? Or constant, or whatever, no? May laman yan. So kung ano man yung laman yan, pwede mo na i-substitute dito to determine your transfer function. Okay? So, do you have any question with the derivation? So, ito palaging ginagamit natin, no? This one is the equation of your standard form using the closed loop transfer function. Okay? So, let's try to share another one. Okay, so ito, nag-discuss na natin yan. Yan, nag-discuss na rin natin yan. Okay? Okay, so these are the block diagram algebra, no? Gagamitin natin ito. This one is open. Open yan. Okay, so you can refer that when you're reducing your block diagrams. Okay, so combining blocks in cascade. So if your block diagram or your blocks is connected in series, no? Connected in series yan. So you have to multiply. Pagsasamahin nyo, no? So magiging isang block diagram na lang pero naka-multiply. Okay. Moving a summing point after the block. So this one is the summing point. Okay. So you try to move this after the block. Kasi pag titignan mo, this one is before the block. Ito yung block eh. Ito yung summing point. So if you try to move this one, no, here, no, after the block, so ayan, lumipat na yung G na block diagram o yung block nandito na sa harapan. Pero maglalagay ka ng G sa feedback. Okay, napansin nyo, walang G dito. Pero nung itong summing point ay nilipat, so you have to put G. Maglalagay ka ng G sa feedback. Okay? Next, moving a summing point ahead of the block. Okay? So, ito yung original. Ililipat mo naman ngayon sa harapan ng block. So, pag nilipat na, ito na, no, nag-swap na sila. You have to put 1 over G sa feedback. Okay? Next, so this one is the summing point. Move mo siya after the block. So, itong summing point, ililipat mo dito. So, mangyayari yan, ito, lumipat na siya. So, itong point na to, nakalipat na dito. Maglalagay ka ng 1 over G. No? Maglalagay ka naman ng 1 over G dito sa feedback. Okay. Yung take-off point mo rin, ililipat mo naman sa harapan ng G ahead of the block. So ito, nilipat na. Originally, nandito siya, lumipat. So maglalagay ka ng G sa feedback. Okay? So, to eliminate the feedback loop, ito yung standard form, no? Para maging isang block na lang siya. ito yung gagawin. So you have G over 1 negative positive GH, which is we had already derived. Okay, na-derive na natin yan. Okay. Okay, combining blocks in parallel. So, naka-parallel to, no? This one is different from this. Kasi ito, tignan niyo yung arrow pabalik. No? Pabalik yung arrow. Dito naman, naka-parallel. So, papunta silang pareho. Kung naka-forward sila, papunta silang output. So, kung ganyan, you have to either add or subtract. So, tignan niyo yung sign doon, plus, then plus minus. So, G, positive, negative, G2. Isang block na lang siya, can be represented by a single block, pero mag-a-add or mag-subtract. No, hindi katulad dito, ito parang naka-series or naka-cascade, magmumultiply. No, you have to multiply. Pagdating naman dito, ayan, mag-a-add lang. Okay, so another one is moving a summing point. So kung ganito yung summing point mo, gusto mo siyang maging horizontal. Kasi mas madaling tignan, mas madaling magbasa kapag naka-horizontal. Okay? So, ipapasok mo lang siya, pero you have some changes, no? Katulad dito. This one is positive x3 and this one is negative x2. So, ang lalabas dito dapat is x3 minus x2. Ito, dito sa point ito, x3 minus x2. Pero pag dito na lumabas, since this one is negative, papansin mo na yung x2 ay positive, tapos yung x3 magiging negative because of this negative. Okay? And then, na-represent mo siya as this one. No? So, x3. Okay? Ang lalabas dito ngayon, dito ay x1 plus x2. Okay? Then, nung lumabas dito, that is x1 plus x2 minus x2. Okay? So, you converted this one to from parallel or from vertical, ginawa mong horizontal. Okay? So, itong block na to, nilipat mo dito sa taas. Okay? So, that is moving a summing point. So, we can now manipulate some of the block diagrams using these conditions, no? Or algebra. Ang tawag nila dito ay block diagram algebra. Okay. So, reduction. Una, you have to reduce all the blocks in series or blocks in cascade. Yun muna uunahin. Pangalawa, yung mga nakaparallel. Kung may nakaparallel, o sa i-parallel nyo. No? Pangatlo, kung mayroong feedback loop. Ito yung feedback loop class. Ito. Yan. Feedback loop yan ay nakalagay. Eliminating a feedback loop. Okay? So, pangapat, advisable to shift take-off points to the right and summing point to the left. So, yan yung advice ng block diagram reduction. No? So, mas maganda kung yung take-off point mo palaging nasa right, tapos yung summing point mo palaging nasa left. Okay? Repeat 1 to 4 until block diagram is reduced to the standard form and determine C over R. Okay? So, let's have some example. Ayan. So, you have here a complex block diagram. Ayan. So, tanggalin natin itong papel. Okay, so let's try to reduce this. So, stop sharing. Na sulat ko na to. Okay, ayan. Okay, so you try to analyze your circuit first, no? Or your block diagram. Okay? So this one, G2 and G3 are cascade. So yun muna ang uunahin. Then yung H1 na yan, naka-feedback dito. So isang block na lang to. Then itong H2 naka-feedback dito sa tatlo. Yung H3 naka-feedback dito sa 4. Okay? Ayan, no? And then, ito, since last ito, ang sabi niya, ang mga summing point daw dapat nasa left. Tapos, ang mga take-off point, ito tawag dito sa mga ganyan take-off point. At tawag dito ay summing point. Makikita niyo naman kung bakit tinawag na summing point. Okay? Dapat ito nasa right. Right ba? O dapat nandito. Tapos yung mga take-off point, tama lang na nandito siya, no? Okay? So, first, let's try this one. Ito. Dotted lines na lang para mas, ano, no? Ayan. So, dotted line. Okay? Sisimplify natin yan. So, medyo, sabi ko medyo mahaba ito kasi you have to redraw again, no? Redraw ka ng redraw hanggat hindi mo siya sisimplify. So, ito, nag-redraw na naman ako dito, no? So, redraw. Then, meron akong summing point, another summing point. Itatlo yung summing point ko. Okay? Then, isang block na lang ito. That is represented as G2 multiplied by G3. Yan. Okay, so you have the C. Okay, so we have the H1. Then you have the H2. Okay. And you have the H3. Okay, so ito, isa lang connection nito, pababa, ayan, lagyan natin dyan. Okay. So you have C, you have R, you have G1. Okay, so you have positive, negative, positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay, next, reduce this block. Ito yung internal feedback na tinutukoy doon kanina. Okay, so reduce natin to. Ayan, reduce. So isang block diagram na lang yan. Okay, so let's try to redraw again. Okay, so this block diagram is simple, no? Simple lang ito, no? Di pa tayo, wala pa tayo sa complex kasi pag complex, hindi lang yan. Pero hindi ko na ituturo yan. So gusto ko lang makuha nyo yung pinakamadali o simplified, no? So, isang block diagram na lang ito. Laking block diagram. Ang laman nito, no, ay sabi natin G2, G3, all over. So, you have 1 plus, kasi this one is minus, 1 plus G2, G3, H1. Okay, ayan. Okay, so we have here H1, H2, I mean H2, yan. So, H2, then we have H3. Okay? Yan. So you have R. Positive, negative, positive, negative. Okay? Next. So ito naman, no? Ito. So reduce mo yung feedback na to. Yan. Natin yung feedback na yan, no? Okay, so pag i-reduce natin yan, so dito na lang, no? Para, so ito, dito ko na lang ilalagay. So you have R sub 1, R pala R. So ito yung G sub 1. Then meron kang summing point. Okay? And ito, no? Can be represented as a block. Maliit na lang. Ayan. So, ito bali yung H3. Okay? So, lagay mo dito A. Okay? Pag hindi magkasya, lagyan mo ng A. Ano ba yung, then, ano yung laman ng A? No? Para mas madaling tignan. So, So, ano ba yung laman ng A? Ang laman ng A, ito yung pinaka-G, ito yung G, ito yung H. Okay, so lagay natin dito, that is G2, G3, all over 1 plus G2, G3, H1, all over. So you have 1 plus, kasi minus yon. 1 plus ito at saka multiplied by H2. Okay, so you have G2, G3, H2, all over 1 plus G2, G3, H1. Okay? So, hindi dapat dyan yung A. Dapat nandito yung A. Buray natin. So, A dapat nasa gitna. Yan. That's the proper way to write your complex fraction, no? Kasi pag dito mo nilagay, iisipin mo baka ito lang. So, dapat nasa gitna. Okay? Oh, so how can you simplify this? No? How can you simplify this? So ito muna, nasa ilalim, di ba? So ito, pupunin mo yung common denominator niya doon, ililipat mo doon sa 1. So that is A is equal to G2, G3 all over. Okay, so you have 1 plus G2, G3, H1, then all over. Oh, so mali na naman ako. So dapat dito yan, no? So that is 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2 all over 1 plus G2, G3, H1. And ito, at saka yun, magka-cancel. So therefore, A is equivalent to G2, G3, all over 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2. Okay? Yeah. That is the value of A. Ito yan. Yung laman nito, ito. Okay? Oh, so, hindi pa tayo tapos kasi hindi pa tapos yung ano natin, no? Hindi pa simplified yung block diagram natin. So, you have positive, negative. Okay, so ang sabi kasi sa question, gagawin daw natin standard form. Ano ba ang standard form? Ito ang standard form. Ito. Yan ang standard form. Hindi naman ito mukhang standard form. Ba? So, ang gagawin mo, itong summing point, inilipat mo dito sa harap ng G1. Diba? Ito, lilipat mo dito. Okay. So, pag nilipat natin yan, okay, sabi ko nga, open yung block diagram algebra na yan. So, share ulit natin kasi ako rin hindi ko kabisado yan. Okay, so ito yan, no? Ito, number 3. No? Block diagram algebra number 3. Okay? So, kapag inilipat itong summing point dito sa harap ng G, kailangan maglagay daw ng 1 over G dito sa feedback. Okay? O, so, tignan natin, ha? So, stop share. Maglagay daw ng 1 over G. So, kuha tayo ng maliit sa papel. So, continue natin dito. Okay? Yan, no? Continue lang natin. So, nasali figure. Ito yung figure. Okay? So, lilipat natin sa harap ng G sub 1. Okay? So, we have ito na yung summing point. Okay? Ito na yung G sub 1. Tapos, nandito yung A. And then, you have C. Tapos, dito, maglalagay daw tayo ng 1 over G. Okay? So, that is H3 over G sub 1. Ayan, di ba? 1 over G eh. So, magiging, magmumultiply sila. So, H3 over G sub 1. So, ito yung R plus minus. Ito yun, no? Plus minus. So, okay. So, pag sinimplify mo yan, so you have, okay. So, isang block na lang dito sa taas. Ano kaya ang ilalagay natin dun sa taas? So, mas maganda, wag mo na ilagay sa loob. Ito, no? Lagay mo lang B. Okay? So, ito yung C. Ito yung R. Pwede rin naman class ilagay sa loob, kaya lang, ang pinakamagandang technique dyan, bago mo i-enclose, isulat mo lang muna yung equation bago mo enclose ng box. Kasi pag nag-box ka, tapos marami, kulang, eh, ang pangit tignan, baka hindi rin matchikan, no? Okay, so yun yung technique dyan. So, nandito yung, katulad dito, nag-box na ako, so hindi nagkasya. So, nalagay ko dito, H3 over G sub 1. Okay, so bago ako maglalagay ng box. Yan. Okay, so ito, no? So, yung positive, negative. Now, ano kaya ang laman ng B? Okay, ang laman ng B, nakamultiply silang dalawa, yung A at saka yung G1. So, ito, ang laman ng B, that is G1, G2, G3, all over, you have 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2. Yan ang laman ng B. Okay? So, ito yung unang tanong, no? Nasagot na natin yung unang tanong. Convert to standard form. Ito yung standard form. Okay, next. What is C over R? Ito hindi C over R yan. Standard form lang yan ng block diagram. So, what is C over R? So, computin natin, no? C over R. Okay, so you have C over R is equal to, ito, yung nasa taas. So, we have G1, G2, G3 all over 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2 all over 1 plus kasi minus yon. Ito, yung B multiplied by this. GH di ba? Ito yung pinaka-G, ito yung pinaka-H. So, GH. So, that is G1, G2, G3, H3 all over. So, meron kang G1 sa ilalim, di ba? May G1 ka sa ilalim na nakamultiply yung 1 plus kasi H over 3, H3 over G1 yan. So, kapag ito may multiply mo ng H3 over G1, so ganito lalabas. So, 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2. Okay, so ganyan, no? Okay, so yung G1 magka-cancel. So, bago mo i-cancel yung nasa ilalim nito at saka ito, pareho lang ito eh, ito at saka yan. Huwag mo kakalimutang ilipat muna ito doon. Okay, kasi may 1 plus eh. So, ilipat mo muna ito doon. So, let's try this, no? Cancel ko to. Okay, cancel ko yan. So, therefore, that is G1, G2, G3, all over. So, ito, susulat ko doon, dito, 1 plus G2, G3, H1 plus G2, G3, H2 plus ito, G2, G3, H3. So this one is C over R. Okay? Ayan. So, ito yung transfer function natin. Okay? So, you see no, how very long it is, pero it is very easy kasi meron ka namang tinitignan na block diagram algebra. Okay? So, tignan nyo yung process, yung reduction. Okay? And this one. Okay? Now, sa tingin nyo kasi parang ang daming sagot, nakakalito. Now, this can be represented by, this can be represented by a number or a variable. So, mas madali na yan kapag pinalitan mo ng, kunyari, itong G1, G2, G3. So, let's say 5, 7, tapos 1. So, 5 times 7 times 1. O di mas maikli na, di ba? Okay? Now, these are numbers, no? Number yan. So, represented ko lang siya as G at saka H para makita natin yung process. Okay? So, next, tignan natin. So, present. Number 2. Okay, number 2. So, I think we can only solve 1 and 2. Tapos, punta na tayo sa signal flow graph, no? Yung, lang, yung procedure lang ang gusto kong ipakita sa inyo dito, no? So, let's solve number 2. Ayan. Okay, number 1. Number 2. Okay, so sa number 2 class, you have, this system is known as multiple input, single output, no? Multiple input, single output, because you have two input, R1 and R2, and you have to mix the process for the input of R1 and R2. Okay? Kasi sa totoong system naman, hindi lang naman isang input. There are so many input. And you have one finished product, or pwede rin namang dalawa ang finished product mo. So halimbawa ay yung sa kiskisan ng palay, di ba? So ano yung mga product doon? Yung bigas at saka yung darak, di ba? Ayun, yun yung example ng multiple, yun yung example ng single input, multiple output. Okay? So, meron siyang parang waste product. Okay? So dito naman, dalawa ang ating input. So siguro, dalawa yung ingredients niya to produce a certain product. Okay, ano kaya ang magiging output? So we don't know what's the value of G1, G2, and H1, pero nilagay lang natin siya. Okay, so let's try to stop share kung paano natin itatackle yan. So, okay, ito. Okay, so let R2 to be equal to 0. Okay? Ibig sabihin yan, you have to turn off first yung R2 para makuha mo yung output kung sakaling yung unang ingredients lang ang papasok sa system. Tapos ganun ang gagawin mo ulit, i-off mo yung R1, no? And then you try to let R2 in. Tapos para makita mo kung ano yung magiging result. And then pagkatapos nun, you have to combine. Okay? So ganun ang technique dyan. So kung tatlo yan, tatlo yung input, halimbawa tatlo yung ingredients niya, so all you have to do is turn off the two input. So ibig sabihin, magiging tatlo ang process. Okay, so let R2 is equal to 0. Kapag 0 yan, pag 0 yan, ito, lalabas dito. No? Dapat ang lalabas dito, G1 plus R2. Dapat ganon. Eh, since 0 ang R2, so lalabas dito G1 lang. Okay? So, i-drawing mo siya, no? Para mas makikita mo kung anong mangyayari. So, you have G1, G1, and then, instead na meron kang summing point, wala ka ng summing point dyan. Kasi 0, 0 naman yan eh. Okay? 0 naman ang R2 eh. So, you have G2. Okay? So, ito yung C. So, ito yung R1 natin. And then, meron kang feedback dito. Okay? So, you have H1 mo. So, you have positive, negative. Okay? Pag sinimplify mo yung nasa taas, ito na, mangyayari, no? So, you have G1, G2. Okay? So, you have C. So, ito pa rin yung feedback. H1. Okay? Ayan, ganyan, no? So, you have positive, negative, R1. Okay? Oh, so, standard form na yan. So, pwede ko lang isolve yung C over R. C over R1. Diba? That is G1, G2, all over 1 plus yan kasi minus yun. So, you have G1, G2, H1. Okay? So, that's the first process. Kapag R sub 1 is on, then R sub 2 is off. Okay? Next. So, dito sa kabila, no? Let naman R1 is equal to 0. 0 daw ang R1. So, ito, 0 yan. Okay, so you have to draw, no? So, you have R2. Okay, ito yung R2. So, pupunta doon, G2. G2. Ayan. So, yung C. Okay? So, papasok dito, ito yon. Ito, wala na to, no? Diretso na yan. So, papasok dyan. So, you have G1. Ayan. G1. Okay? And then, nandito ngayon yung H1. Negative H1. Take note of that. Negative H1. No? Kasi H1, ang output niya ay negative. O, negative H1. Tapos yung G1, that is positive. So, positive ito. So, positive din yun. Okay? So, ito ngayon yung value. Yan, ganyan. Nagkulang lang ako. Okay? Okay, so, pwede na natin kunin yung C over R2. That is G2 all over. Okay, so, since plus yan, so, 1 minus G1, G2, negative H1. Ayan. Okay? Yan maigi, ha? Yan maigi. So, G2, G1, H1. Ito na yung pinaka-feedback mo. Yung feedback, hahalo ngayon sa G. Yan. Ito na. Itong dalawa. Okay, so therefore, C over R2, that is equal to G2 all over 1 plus G1, G2, H1. Okay? Parehong sila, di ba? Ayan. Ito. So therefore, C, no? C is equal to G1, G2, all over 1 plus G1, G2, H1. You have R1 plus. Okay, you have G2 all over 1 plus G1, G2, H1. And you have R2. Okay? So, ganyan lang, huwag niyong ihalo kasi pag nag-a-analyze kayo ng system, No? Halimbawa, dalawa ang input ng system mo, pwede mong gawing 0 ito, automatic ito buong 0. So, makukuha mo kaagad yung value nito. Kung 0 naman yan, ito yung value. Kasi pag pinaghalo mo yan, mahihirapan ka pang mag-cancel kung ano yung mga dapat mag-cancel kasi nagsisiro yung isa sa kanila. Okay? So, that is C is equal to, ayan. Now, paano natin i-drawing ito? Mag-block diagram. No? Paano kaya? So, ganito, no? Ayan. Ito. So, lakihan ko na yung block para magkasya. Okay, ayan. C. Tapos, ito. Okay, ayan. Okay, so we have R1. We have R2. Plus. O, ilagay mo sa loob yung R1, yung coefficient ng R1. So, G1, G2, all over 1 plus G1, G2, H1. So, ganun din dito. So, you have G2 all over 1 plus G1, G2, H1. Okay? Yan. Yan ang final block diagram ng system. So, yung system mo ay complicated, pero sa tingin ko hindi ito complicated. Pero may mga system na complicated na maraming input, pwede mong i-simplify. O, di ganito na lang. Okay, so pagkatapos mo siyang ma-simplify, gawin mo ganito. Now, remember, ang tawag dito sa loob, process yan, pinaprocess yung mga ingredients dyan, yung mga temperature, yung pag-mix ng mga chemical, kung nasa chemical industry ka, ayan. So, nandiyan lahat yan. Okay, so that's your multiple input, single output. Okay? So I think we can now have a break. Pagbalik natin, signal flow graph na. Okay? So we will be back at around mga
10:45, sir.
45. So gawin mo ng 46. Okay, 10:45 class 10:45. Sige na, you can have your kung anong man gusto nyo gawin. Basta 10:45 tayo, signal flow graphs na pagbalik. Okay, so you can now leave.
Sige po, sir. Dito lang kami po, sir.
Sige.
Thank you, sir.
Pero mahaba
Thank you
pa
po.
20 minutes pa, sayang yung ano nyo.
Okay lang po, sir.
Okay, sige. 10:45 tayo, class.
Okay po, sir.
Okay, so the process of block diagram reduction technique is time consuming because at every stage, modified block diagram is to be redrawn. Okay? A simple method is developed by S.J. Mason, which is known as the signal flow graph or SFG. Okay? It does not require any reduction techniques and it is composed primarily of nodes and directed lines called branches. No? Okay, so this one is your example of your signal flow graph. Okay, so as you can see, yung mga X values, that is a node. Tapos yung mga A1, 2, A2, 3, those are your branches. Okay? Now, let's try to analyze this, no? X1 is the input, X6 is the output. So you have loop, di ba? So this one is a closed loop. As you can see, no, X2, X3, then babalik dito sa X2. That is a closed loop. So, as well as X3, X4, then babalik dito sa X3. This one, yung A44, this one is known as self-loop. No? Self-loop yan. That is also considered as a loop, pero categorized as self-loop. Okay? Now, X3, X4, X5, and X3 babalik, it is not a loop, no? Kasi tingnan niyo yung arrow, so yung arrow papunta doon. So kung bababa ka dito, hindi po pwede kasi yung arrow magsasalubong. So hindi to closed loop. Okay? So yung A34, A45 saka A35, they are not a closed loop. Ang closed loop lang yung A23, A32, A34, A43 saka yung A44. Okay? Now, ang tawag dito sa X2, iba yung node ang tawag sa kanila, pero ang X1 is classified as input node, X6 that is classified as output node, pero X2 that is classified as mixed node. Mixed node siya kasi there are branches entering and branches leaving. So ito entering, A12 is entering, A32 is entering, and A23 is leaving. So tawag sa kanya mixed node. Okay, so nandito naman yung definitions. Ayan. Input node or source node contain only outgoing branches. Output node or sink node, ang tawag doon ay incoming branches. Contain only incoming branches. Mixed node contains both the outgoing and incoming branches. Forward transmittance, ito yung transfer function. Ang transfer function, ito yung mga nasa taas. A1, 2, A2, 3, yan. So those are transmittances. No? Kung ang tawag sa block diagram ay transfer function block, ang tawag sa signal flow graph ay transmittance. Okay? Forward path, a path which originates from the input and terminate at the output node. Along no node is transverse. So, transverse. So, kulang na N. So, magkakita tayo na N. Okay, so, capital letter pala yun. Small letter yan. Transverses more than once. So, ibig sabihin, isang beses lang dapat dadaanan ang tinatawag nating forward path. So, ito yung forward path mo. Okay? So, ito, no? X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, X6. Isang beses lang dinaanan yung node. Now, dito sa figure, ilan beses ka pwedeng mag-travel mula X1 hanggang X6? Ilang beses? Okay, tingnan natin ha. Yung una, ito. X1, X2, X3, X4, X5, X6. Okay, ngayon. Meron pa ba? Kung ito, X1, X2, X3, tapos babalik ka doon, yung dadaan ka sa A44, hindi pwede. Kasi, dalawang beses mo madadaanan yung X4. Okay? So, hindi po pwede yon. Meron pa. Ito, hindi pwede ito, no? X1, X2, X3, tapos babalik ako, tapos babalik ulit ako sa X2. Okay? Ayan.
Sa A35, sir.
So, hindi po pwede yon. So, tignan natin kung saan, no? Meron, dalawa yan eh. So, X1, X2, X3, tapos dito. X5 at saka X6. So, dalawang beses ka makakarating sa X6. Okay? Ayan. Yun yung tinatawag nating forward path. Okay. Loop. A path that originates and terminates on the same node, along which no node is traversed more than once. Okay, so along which no node is traversed more than once. Okay? Ay mali pala yung spelling natin kanina. Hindi transverse, traverse lang talaga ito, no? Tapos ang B-E-R-S-T yan. B-E-R-S-T. S pala po. Okay? Para kasi baka hanapin nyo sa dictionary eh. Okay? So, next. That is a loop. So, pinakita ko na sa inyo yung loop. Ito yung loop. Loop 1, loop 2, and loop 3. Ito, hindi ito loop. Itong malaki na to. Okay? Next. Self loop. O, pinakita ko na rin yan. Path gain. Product of the branch gain along the path. So, ito yung path gain natin. Ayan. A12 times A23 times A34 times A45 times A56 and A12 times A23 times A35 times A56. Yun yung gain. No? Gain. Tawag. Path gain. Pag loop gain naman, yun yung product ng transmittance. So ito, A23, A32, A34, A43, saka A44. A44 times 1, A44. Oh, so gain pa rin yun. No? Okay? Next, non-touching loop. Oh, ito, no? Kailangan natin yan mamaya. Non-touching loop. Alin sa tingin mo ang non-touching loop dyan? Dalawa lang ang non-touching loop. Kasi itong loop na ito, at saka loop na yan, nagta-touch sila, no? Dito sa X3. Share the same node, so hindi pwede. Hindi sila classified as non-touching. Itong A23 saka A32 tapos A44, yan ay classified as non-touching. Okay? So wala silang walang naka-share na node sa kanila. Itong A24 at saka A34 at saka A43 at saka A44, touching. No? Touching yan kasi nag-share sila dito sa X4. Yan. Okay? So those are the definitions for signal flow graph. Kaya lang, may pumapasok lang. Okay? So let's try to analyze yung sample number 12. Okay? So, sulat ko lang class yung example number 12. So, example number 12. So, number 1. So, you have Y2, E1, Y1. And Y3. Y1. Okay? Stop share natin to. Okay. So, hanapin natin. Let's try to draw this. So, there are, bilangin mo yung Y, kung ilan yung Y. That is our node eh. Okay? So, yung G saka yung H, yun yung gain o yung transmittance. Okay? So, Y hanggang 6. Okay? So, drawing natin. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay? So, yung Y1, yung Y2, Y3, Y4, Y5, and Y6. Okay? So, between Y1 and Y2, you have G1. Okay? So, yung Y1 papuntang Y2. So, Y1 papuntang Y2. Ayan. So, you have G1. Okay? Then, Y3 papuntang Y2. Y3 papuntang Y2. So, feedback. So, pabalik. So, we have H1. Okay? Ayan. Next. Y2 papuntang Y3. Y2 papuntang Y3. So, you have G2. Okay, then Y3 papuntang Y3, so you have self-loop, ayan. No? So you have G3. Then Y1 papuntang Y3, Y1 papuntang Y3, ito. Okay, Y1 papuntang Y3, so you have G4. Then Y3 papuntang Y4, Y3 papuntang Y4, so you y5. Then y2 papuntang y4, y2 papuntang y4, so dito na lang sa taas, y2 papuntang y4, so you have negative g6. Then y4 papuntang y5, y4 papuntang y5, so we have g7, y5 papuntang y6, ito 6 pala, ito 6, y5 papuntang y6, so you have 1, okay? Then y4 papuntang y6, y4 papuntang y6, ito, so we have g8. Okay? So, forward path, ilan ang forward path natin? So, bibilangin natin. So, you have 1, you have 2, you have 3, you have 4. And, meron pa isa. Meron pa isa. You have 5. Ito. Ganon. Saka dito. Okay? O, kung meron pa kayo nakikita, pakisabi, no? So, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Meron pa ba? Yun na nga. 6. Ito. 6. Okay, so, sige natin. So, we have 1, we have 2, okay, we have 3, we have 4, we have 5, then we have 6. 6 lahat. Baka matalas ang mata nyo. Alam ko, matatalas ang mga mata nyo eh. So, tignan nyo. Ano, kung meron pa. Ilan ang forward path.
Yung sa ano sir, sa G4 dadaan ng H1.
Okay, 7. No? 7. Ito. 1, 2, 1. Dito, ito. Ganito. Ganyan. Pag ganon. 8 actually. Ito. Ay, hindi siya 8. Tama yung ito lang. Ito. Diba? Gaganon siya. Yun. Yung nasa isip ko kasi ito, tapos ganon, tapos dadaan dito. Hindi po pwede. Nadaanan mo na kanina to. Hindi pwede. So, ito. 8 lahat. O 7. 7 ba yun? Ito. 7 lahat, no? Ito yung pang 7. Diba? 8 lahat nga. Ito pa. Ito. Yan. Diba? 8 lahat yan. 8. Okay? Yung pang 7, ito. Okay? Yung pang 8, ito. Yan. Okay? O, wala akong nadaanan na Y sa 2 beses. 8 lahat. Baka meron pa, baka gusto nyo 10 o 9, pero wala na akong nakikita eh, kayo. So, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, saan yung 6? Ito yung 7 kanina, ito yung 7. No? At ito yung 8. Nawawala yung 6.
Dadaan sa dalawang curve, sir.
Saan? Saan yung 6? Ito. Ito ba?
Hindi, sir. Yung sa taas po. Sa baba.
Ito. Ito. Tapos dito.
Yes, sir. Baba po.
Ayan. So that is number 6. So para hindi kayo malito, no, para hindi kayo malito, so lagay nyo dito forward path. Isulat nyo na kaagad. No? So, forward path 1. Diba? So, we have G1, G6, G7, negative. Negative. Forward path 2. Yung G1, G2, G5, and G7. Straight line. Ha? So, parang yung number 1, ito. Tapos ito yung, so yung forward path 3, yung pinili natin muna ito. Tapos bago yun. So, that is G1, G2, G5, saka G8. So, ganito yan, no? Yan. Tapos, forward path 4, ito naman, yun nandito. So, you have G4, G5, G7. So, parang ganito, no? Yan. Forward path 5, ito. So, that is G4, G5, G8. Yan. Forward path 6. Forward path 6. So, paano kaya? Ito, no? So, G1, G6, and G8. Negative. Okay? So, parang ito, ganun, saka ganyan. Yan. Para ma-visualize mo. So, forward path 7. Ito. So, G4, H1, G6, G7. So, negative. Okay, so parang ganito yan. Ito, pag ganun. Okay, so yan, ano. Then, FP8. Ayan, FP8. So, parang G4, H1, G6, and G8. So, you have negative. Okay, so paano ba i-drawing yan? So, pag ganun, bumalik siya, tapos pag ganyan. Whatever. Yan. So, 8 lahat. Huh? Okay, next. Loop. Ilan ang loop? Close loop. 1, 2, 1, 2. Meron pa ba? Okay. Oh, yan. Tapos ito. Ito hindi pwede. Ito rin hindi pwede. Ito hindi pwede. Dalawa lang ang loop natin. No? And that is G2, H1, at saka G3. Yan. Dalawa lang. Okay? Non-touching, wala. Kasi ito lang ang dalawang loop. Tapos touching pa sila, so wala. Okay? O, yan. Yan na yan. Okay? That's number 1. Okay, next. Okay, itong number 2, draw the equivalent signal flow graph. So, ita-transform natin ito into signal flow graph. Okay? So, ito yung R. R pala ito. Ayan. Nakalimutan. Okay? So, dito ka maglalagay ng node. So, node. Okay? Then, you have node. May node ka dito. May node ka dyan. You have node dito. Node din. Node. Then, you have node. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 na node lahat. Okay, so 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, haba. 9, 10. Kami. Okay. So So, ito. Lagyan kaya natin para hindi tayo malito. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. 1, 4, 5, 7, 8, 9. Okay? So, ready na tayo, no? Between 1 and 2, 1. Wala nakalagay. So, 1. Between 2 and 3, so 1 din. 3 and 4, so we have G1. 4 and 5, so you have G2. 5 and 6, and 6 and 7, 5 and 6, and 6 and 7, so you have 1, then you have 1, diba? 7 and 8, so we have G3. 8 and 9, so you have 1. 9 and 10, so you have G5. Next, between 6 and 10, you have H3. 6 and 10, ito. 6 and 10. Drawing lang natin. 6 and 10. So, pabalik, no? H. Between 7 and 8, yun. Pa-forward siya, no? G4. Ikita nyo naman yung arrow. Next, between 3 and 5, H1. So, 3 and 5. So, 3 and 5. Okay, ayan. So, pabalik. You have negative H1. Ito, negative H3 din yun, no? Negative kasi. Then, between 2 and 9. 2 papuntang 9. Ayan. Okay? So, you have positive H2. Okay, meron pa ba? So, okay. Ayan. H3, G4, H1. Okay. Ayan na yan, no? So, forward path. Ito na lang. Forward path. Forward path. 1, 2. Dalawa lang ang forward path. 2. Okay? Loop. So, 1, 2, 3. Oh, you have 3 loops. So, ano ba yung dalawang forward path natin? So, you have G1, G2, G3, G1, G2, G3, G5, and we have G1, G2, G4, G5. Loop. Dalawang loop natin. So, we have G1, G2, H1, negative. Tapos, we have G3, G5, ito, G3, ito yun, no? G3, G5, H3. Negative. Ano pa ba? Ito. Okay, so we have G1, G2, G3, H1. So, 4 ang loop natin. Ano yung pang-4? Ito. Ito yung pangatlo eh. Ayan, yung pangatlo. Tapos bumalik doon. Ito yung pang-4. Ito. Umakyat siya doon. Tapos bumalik doon. Ayan. So, there are 4. No? 4 na loop. So, yung pang-4, that is G1, G2, G4, H2. H2 ito. H2. Diba? So, negative. Okay, so meron pa bang loop? Ito, hindi po ito. Ito yung, meron pa, no? Ito pa, class. Ito. Close loop ito, ito. Punta siya doon, tapos babalik. O, 5. Okay, so 5 lahat. So we have G4 and H3, negative. Okay, ulitin natin yung 5 loop. 1, 2, 3, 4, okay, and 5. Ito. So, 5 loop. Okay. 2 non-touching. 2 non-touching. Meron ba? 2 non-touching? Meron. Ito. At saka, ito. Meron pa. 2 ang non-touching. Ito. At saka ito. Hindi sila nag-share ng common node. Okay? O, ulitin ko 2 non-touching, 3. Yan. Okay, susulat na natin, ano? So, G1, G2, H1. Ang kapartner nito ay ito, no? So, you have G5 and H3. Magiging positive na to kasi negative. Yan yung unang non-touching. Pangalawang non-touching, ito ulit. So, you have G1, G2, H1, which is negative. Tapos, ito naman. G4, G5, H3. Okay? And magiging positive. Ayan. Okay? Next, meron bang 3 non-touching loop? Ibig sabihin, 3 loop na non-touching. Wala. Kasi itong dalawa, nag-share sila sa 7 at saka 8. Okay? So, hindi po pwede. No? Yan. So, kung ganito yan, class, halimbawa, may mga loop ka dyan. Ayan, loop. Ang daming loop, halimbawa. Ayan. So, loop A, B, C, D, E, F. Okay? Ang 2 non-touching, AC, AD, AE, AF. Non-touching yan. So, meron pa. BD, BE, BF. Tapos CE, CF. Tapos DF. 2 non-touching loop. Kapag 3 non-touching loop, so ACE, ACF. O, dito naman tayo. ADF. Wala na. C, wala ka na ipapartner sa C kasi ito, although yung E hindi niya walang common sa kanila, non-touching, yung A non-touching, pero pinag-uusapan natin is 3 non-touching. Okay, 3 loop na non-touching. Ayan. So, wala na. Okay, so yun lang, no? Pag 3 non-touching, ganito halimbawa, 3 non-touching, ACE, ACF, tapos BDF. Yun lang. Ang 3 non-touching loop. Okay? Pag 4 non-touching loop, wala. Makakabuo ka pa ng 4 na loop na non-touching dito. So, wala, oh. Okay? Wala. Okay. So, that's how you determine yung mga touching at saka non-touching loop. Okay? O, at ano yung Mr. Anastasio? Saan mo hindi naintindihan? Ano sabi niya? Isa pa eh. So, saan kaya?
Kanina pa yun, sir.
Kayo na pa yun?
Opo.
Okay. So, pag-aralan nyo to, okay? Kasi halimbawa sa quiz, o dun sa final exam nyo, so, halimbawa, naibigay na ito. Siyempre, itatanong doon, how many non-touching loops are there? How many 3 non-touching loops? So, tingnan nyo. Okay? Ano ba yung touching dyan sa non-touching? Ilan ba ang forward path? Okay? Ayan. Bibilangin nyo ngayon. Ano ba yung gain? Ito gain ito Ano ba yung gain ng forward path? Okay? O, titignan nyo ngayon kung ano yung gain ng path. Baka may naglagay ako ng G, halimbawa, G7 dyan. Diba? Wala naman yung G7. Mali yun. Okay? Next. So, let's see. Screen share. Okay. Tingnan natin. So, sino ba po pwede natin tanungin dyan? So, drawing ko muna. Ilan ba yan? 1, 2, 3, 6 lahat. Okay, so you have yata yan dito. Tapos dito. Analyze class, analyze. Okay. Okay, so 1. Five, one, 1. Okay, you try to analyze that. So, unang hahanapin natin, ano ba ang ilan ang forward path, diba? Tapos, ano ang ating loop. Okay, so ilan natin dito, forward path. Forward path, ilan kaya? Tapos, i-apply natin yung Mason's game formula, no? Hindi ko na ilagay yung Mason's game formula, susulat ko na lang dito mamaya. Okay, so, stop share natin to. Na-drawing ko naman na. Okay, ayan. Ilan ang forward path?
Tatlo, sir.
Tatlo.
No? Okay.
Dalawa.
Tatlo.
Okay, so tingnan natin muna, no? So, para makuha natin yung transfer function, susulat ko lang dito yung formula ni Mason's game. Transfer function is equivalent to summation of forward path multiplied by delta. Okay? All over delta. Okay? So, habang iniisip nyo, no? So, ano ba ang laman ng delta? Delta is equal to 1 minus summation of L1 plus summation of L2 minus summation of L3. Okay? Yung L1, ito yung loop. Single loop. Yung L2, two non-touching loop. Then yung L3, yun yung three non-touching loop. Ano naman ngayon yung P? Yung P, yun yung gain. Forward path gain. Forward path gain. Okay. And yung delta 1, ito yung delta 1 na yan. Okay, so delta n na lang, P sub n. Okay. Ito ay 1 minus, pareho lang din, L1 plus summation of L2 minus summation of L3 ng forward gain. Okay? Dito tayo, no? Balik tayo. Yan yung gagamitin natin formula ni Mason. Okay, so ilang
Sir.
forward path ito? Yes.
4, sir. 4.
4. So, check natin, no? Okay, 1, 2, 3, 3.
Yung ano,
4. Ito yung 4. Tama ba?
yung dalawang curve sa taas, sir.
Dalawa sa taas. Ulitin ko. 1, 2,
Tatlo lang, sir. Tatlo.
3. Oh, nagamit na. 1, 2,
Yes, sir.
3. Diba? Oh.
Tapos, sir, iikot po
Yung
siya. Di
G4
ba,
sir,
sir?
dadaan yung ano.
Straight muna, tapos akit siya. Then,
Ito.
baba siya, tapos akit ulit.
Ito. 3 na yun kanina, di ba? 3, tapos 4. Di ba?
Tama, sir, apat.
4. 4 yan. So, umikot na ganyan. 4. Meron pa ba? 4. 5. Tignan nyo kung ito 5. Ay, yun na pala yun.
Yung arch.
Yun na pala yun. Yun na pala yun. Pag ganyan.
Ah.
Kasi hindi pa pwedeng pag ganun, tapos babalik ka dito. Nadaanan muna tapos bago ka
Bagay, sir.
Hindi
Sir,
pwede.
sir.
Hindi pwede, madadaanan ng dalawang beses. Parang ganito lang din yan. Ito, tapos doon. Diba? So, hindi ko pwede. Okay? O, so, 4. So, P1. Okay mo dyan. P1. P1 is G1, G2, G3. Okay? O, yan yung P1. P2. P2 natin ito. So, that is G4, G3. G4, G3. P3. G1, G5. Okay? P4. Forward path number 4. So, G4, negative 1. Ayan, negative G4 at saka G5. Ha? Ayan o. 4 lang. Okay, next. Itong P1, may nakadikit sa kanyang delta. Okay? So, delta 1, balik. 1 minus. Okay. Tatanggalin mo ngayon ito. No? Pakinggan nyo ha. Tatanggalin nyo to. Pag tinanggal ko to, no? Meron ba ako nakikitang closed loop? Tatanggalin ko to. Isa-isa ko. Tatanggalin ko. Kung baga sa Quan class, kung baga sa Paco o kaya push pin, tanggalin mo yan, lahat ng pinagdaanan nito, tatanggalin mo. Meron ka bang mabubuong closed loop? Wala.
Meron, sir, ito.
Ito, tatanggalin ko to. Ito, parang ganito ha. Parang ganito. So, pag tinanggal ko yan, ganito, dito na lang. Mangyayari
Wala,
yan.
sir. Pag-open loop lahat.
Ganyan, ganyan, at saka ganyan yan.
Pag-open loop.
Di ba? O,
Yes, sir.
tanggal.
Open loop.
Isipin mo na lang na ito ay push pin, tapos ito ay string o tali. Pag tinanggal ko to, laglag lahat.
Open loop. Yes, sir. Open loop lahat.
O, 0. 1 minus 0. Next, delta 2. G4, G3. Saan ba yan? Ito, G4, G3. Pag tinanggal ko to, open loop lahat din yan. Kasi, pag tinanggal ko itong pin na to, malalaglag itong dalawang string na to. Diba? Okay, so hindi ako makakabuo ng closed loop. Okay, now, papakita ko sa inyo kung paano makakabuo ng closed loop. Ito, halimbawa ito. Okay? So, pag tinanggal ko lahat ito, walang closed loop. Pero kapag dito dumaan, tapos, halimbawa ito ay, halimbawa lang, no? Itong G4 ay papunta dito. Kulay red na lang. Halimbawa, G4 papunta dyan. Tapos, ito ang tinanggal. Lahat ng push pin tinanggal. Ito, tinanggal. Pero hindi naman natanggal to. O, may closed loop ka na nag-iwan. Yun ngayon ang ilalagay mo dito. Okay? So, ito, 1 minus 0 pa rin. Ito, delta 3. G1, G5. G1 saka G5. Pag tinanggal mo lahat ito, pati yan, ito may iwan pero hindi makakabuo ng loop kasi natanggal na ito. So, 1 minus 0. Okay? So, ganun din dito. Okay? So, delta 4. 1 minus 0. Next. Summation of L1. Lahat ng closed loop. Ilan ang closed loop?
5, sir.
Okay, ilan? So, una, isulat na natin, ano? Ito yung una. That is negative G2. Okay, so tingnan natin yung lima na sinasabi mo. Pangalawa, ito, no? So, plus na lang, plus. Huwag na lang tama. Kasi, summation of L1 eh. Summation of L1. So, plus na lang, plus. Okay, G2, ito. Negative G2. Plus, ito. Plus, so you have negative G1, G2, G3H. Okay, ganyan, no? Pangalawa. May pangatlo ba? Mayroon. Ito. Okay, so you have G4, G3, so you have plus, negative G4, G3, at saka H. Okay, next, plus. Ito naman, G1, G5, at saka negative H. So you have negative G1, G5, at saka H. Okay? Apat na yan. 1, 2, 3, 4. Meron pa ba?
Ang 5, sir, yung yung lahat ng ano.
Okay, yung panglima ito. Ito. Yung heart shape. Yan. Ganun. Panglima yan, no? So you have plus. Plus G4, G5, at saka H. Negative 1, negative H, so positive, so positive. Okay, oh. So 5, lahat ang loop. Okay, next. L2. 2 ng touching loop. Tingnan nyo kung mayroon. Doon sa mga loop na nakita natin, tignan nyo yung hindi magta-touch.
Wala, sir.
Wala. So this one is 0. So kung wala ito, natural wala na ring ano, no? L3. Okay. So paano gagawin ang transfer function? So transfer function is summation of Pn delta n. Ito formula ni Mason. So summation yan, i-add mo lang, saka mo multiply yung delta, puro 1 naman yan eh. So you have G1, G2, G3 plus G4, G3 plus G1, G5 minus G4, G5 all over, okay, delta is 1 minus summation of L1, so plus G2 plus G1, G2, G3H plus G3, G4H plus G1, G5H minus G4, G5H. Okay? Then, may plus pa, supposed to be dapat yung sa non-touching. So, since wala na, since 0 yan, so wala na kayo ilalagay. So, now, this one is the transfer function. Okay? Yan yung transfer function natin. Mr. Alagaan yung 4FN.
Di, sir, na-type ko, ano yun, forward path po yun.
Forward path. Okay, so,
Apat po yung initial analyze ko. Kaso may nakita pa po akong isa kaya nagdumas.
meron pa ba? Ay, kanina. Kanina. Okay. Akala natin 3 tapos meron pa pala isa. Okay? Okay, so that's it, no? Wag lang kakalimutan ito. Kahit na gano'ng kasimple yan. Okay? So, pwede niyo ring pwede niyo ring kunin yung transfer function nito, pero unahin niyo muna kunin yung transfer function using the block diagram. Pagtapos, pag nakuha mo na, kunin mo yung transfer function using the signal flow graph. Iko-compare mo, dapat pareho sila ng sagot. Kasi simplification ng block diagram, ito. Itong example na to, no? So, i-recap lang natin. Ito, katulad nito, so ang unang gagawin ay sisimplify mo to, di ba? Multiply yan. Tapos ito rin, simplify mo na kaagad. Mag-add lang to, add. Tapos, kukunin mo yung itong buo, no? Ito, hindi pwede. Pag hindi mo nilipat ito dito, so mayroon tayong rules, di ba? May rules tayo, ito lipat mo doon. Para itong G5 at saka itong sum nito magkasama. Okay, bago mo ito. Okay? So you have, practicing itong number 4. Madali lang naman to. Okay? And yung number 3, sinasabi ko kanina, paano kung walang laman? Ito, halimbawa, walang laman yan. Feedback yan eh. Dapat ito nasa ilalim. Nilagay lang sa taas para hindi nakakalito. So, pag walang laman yan, 1. No? 1 yan. Pag
Walang return, sir.
1 yan, 1. Okay? Ibig sabihin ng 1, kung anong output nito, no? Kung anong output niyan, kunyari, halimbawa lang, yung output niyan ay, let's say, temperature na 50 degrees, halimbawa. So, lahat ng 50 degrees, lilipat doon, 1 eh. Okay? Buo yun. Pero kung may laman yan, maghahati sila. Okay, ito, sasabihin sa akin, sir, paano kung lahat ng process, halimbawa, lahat ng liquid napunta na bumalik doon? Paano to? Hindi walang liquid dito. Magkakaroon lang ng laman to kapag magsisiro na to. Diba? Ganun lang naman eh. So, pag magkakaroon lang laman to, pag magsisiro na yung error, saka lang siya lalabas. So, ano man yun, ipaprocess niya ulit bago niya ilabas sa scene. Eh, meron pang feedback. So, mag-feedback pa doon. Okay? So, yun lang, no? Pag walang laman, 1. Bali ito, negative 1. Kasi negative yun. Okay? So, ayan. Yan na yung last example natin. Ito, mas makakatulong to class, yung ganito. Okay? Kasi mamaya pabalik-balik ka, nasa kalagitnaan ka, hindi mo alam, babalikan mo ulit, tapos ka na pala doon, di ba? Okay, so mas maganda yung gawa mo ng figure. Yan. So ito yung sinasabi kong main concept. Okay, so nasa ano naman yan, naka-record naman tayo. Okay, so you can always open our session, no? Recorded naman lahat yan. Do you have any questions?
None, sir. None.
Ang final exam natin ay lesson number 1 hanggang lesson number nito. At random, no? At random ang pagkuha ng question. 50 items, no? Multiple choice. Yung multiple choice class, halimbawa ito yung question. So, 5 kaagad yung question. Diba? Halimbawa, how many are the forward path? Okay, so how many are 2 loops? 2 non-touching loops. So, ilalagay ko doon A, 1, 2. Letter D, none. di ba? So, hindi makikita. So, kung wala na tayong question, so let's